Agora, queria reagir aqui com vocês ao vídeo do Datto sobre a Prismática, tá? Foi mais um vídeo aí que ele liberou quando falei com ele. Muito obrigado aí, Datto. Link, obviamente, do Datto, do canal do Datto e dos vídeos aqui na descrição. Provavelmente vocês já conhecem ele. Mas é isso. Bora lá. Eu dei um skip aqui porque ele só tá falando daquilo que ele testou e não testou. Obviamente, ele jogou a primeira missão da campanha. Mas a gameplay de fundo vai ser só tipo patrulha, essas coisas, porque a página não liberou, tá? Mas tá aí. Vou estar comentando sobre algumas coisas, outras eu vou ficar aqui quietinho. Isso.
I know I like to joke around that Destiny has become a very easy game if you know how to do an ounce of build crafting.
Na verdade tá bem fácil de build craftar, vamos dizer assim.
It takes it to another level of easy that I did not think possible. So let's
isso é bom e ruim. Bom porque, tipo, pra jogador novo. Ruim porque simplifica muito o jogo. Cara, esse menu ficou simplesmente muito foda, velho.
Subclasses within the prismatic subclass itself, and the goal is to combine all of these different choices into one cohesive setup. You also have access to the Transcendence mechanic, where you fill a light and dark meter,
esse é o super da Prismatic, tá? Transcendência.
Gives you a lot of bonus power and a unique grenade. Filling this light and dark meter is done by doing light or dark damage. So arc, solar, void for light, stasis and strand for dark, or kinetic for a little bit of both. You're gonna have access to quite a lot of fragments as well, all with their own unique effects, and there is plenty of theory crafting to be done here. I have a quick build
muito foda esse menu, ver todos os fragmentos parece que
as an example here for what it's going to be like to build with Prismatic. Part of why I'm excited for Prismatic is because it feels like the build crafting space is just going to absolutely explode. All the different abilities and aspects, fragments, exotic class items. It was tough for me to really wrap my head around how much stuff there is to do with a Prismatic subclass. I started with my exotic class item, which is only active when you have Prismatic equipped, which is something I feel like I might have glossed over when first discussing exotic class items, so I just really wanted to reiterate that. Exotic class items only work if you have Prismatic equipped. I didn't have time to sit and think about the best setup for very long, so I just went with something that
eles só vão estar disponíveis a partir da segunda semana, tá?
Osmiomancy and Starfire on my class item. Grenades recharge from empowered weapon damage and final blows, and Osmiomancy gives me more grenade energy in addition to the Cold Snap benefits. I put on Cold Snap Grenade and Empowering Rift to start, and then I rounded out the kit based on that. Feed the Void for Devour, more grenade energy, Solar Aspect, summons a Solar Buddy, and then some fragments. Facet of Devotion, killing targets hit with a stasis or strand debuff.
Derrotar inimigos com estase ou filamento. Você ganha mais energia, tá?
Transcendence energy. Hope, collecting or destroying an elemental pickup gives Transcendence energy of that type, light or dark.
Okay, so nice.
Balance, rapid light defeats give melee energy, rapid dark defeats give grenade energy.
Ou outro. Ok, isso é bom, sempre bom ter. Esse é o do suor, né, velho? Basicamente. Isso é muito nice.
The goal of my build is simple. Throw cold snaps as often as possible while staying buffed with as many.
Lembrando que tem os Biomancy na...
in patrol.
Não entende quase, tá?
Yeah, it works pretty well. Not really too much of a challenge, but there is a meta goal of Prismatic, and that's to maximize how much you're able to go Transcendent. Transcendent is basically like having a second super.
Tu não tava falando, né? Transcendência, o super da Prismática. Basicamente é um mini segundo super.
Suppressing targets and dealing damage. And while Transcendent, you're buffed even more. Melee damage regens your grenade and vice versa. Kills extend Transcendence, weapon damage goes up, you get damage resistance. Like, I cannot begin
só queria que a granada recarregasse um pouquinho mais rápido, bebê.
And how quickly you can charge it if you are playing into
Se bem que Você ganha energia de volta, né, velho? Sei lá. Ia virar basicamente um super inteiro, né?
It's just make sure that you're dealing damage with alternating light and dark damage. That's
explosões.
Bit easier said than done, I will say, but if there is something that I want to drill into people's heads, it's use both elements as equally as you possibly can.
Aí uma dica pra vocês.
Use your fragments to juice your...
Usem igualmente, tipo, se você pegar 12 kills com arco, uma arma de arco, pegue 12 kills com arma cinética. Ou cinética não. No caso seria de estase, porque seria a subclasse da treva, né? Então tenta sempre manter o mesmo nível, quantidade de kills. Verdade, cinéticas vão carregar ambos os dois lados aqui da prismática. Então isso é legal, velho. Tem um fragmento que ajuda isso. 1 minuto pra carregar a Transcendence. E ele não estava otimizado, esse filme, né? Um super a cada minuto é
Better Devils, Strand, Indebted Kindness, Arc. I'm just alternating. I'm flip-flopping. My abilities...
Ele tem uma arma de arco e uma de ferramentas. Ou seja, sempre subindo os dois lados.
I had the fragment to juice me with darkness debuff kills. Then you go Transcendent, and you just alternate your abilities, and you go for such a long time. Grenade, melee, grenade comes back. Use it to get your melee back. Use it to get your grenade back. As long as there are enemies there, you will be Transcendent for a very long time.
É duro ainda,
I
velho.
will reiterate, I'm in a patrol zone. I realized that, but I had a similar experience in the campaign with my Titan. My Titan got to play in the Legend campaign.
Cara, a gente vai ficar muito, muito forte, velho.
I played with what the game will be giving you
vai ser bizarro.
First access Prismatic. My build was a point contact cannon brace build, which just
Mas pra quem dá build de titã dele, tá, agora. Pouco.
Which Prismatic does get. And then I just equipped the default Prismatic subclass that you get. No other changes. And I, in my team of 2, I got to play with Skill Up, love you, bud, proceeded to completely annihilate the Legend campaign without any resistance. I wasn't allowed to record the stuff that I'm talking about right now, so you're really only going to get to see me on patrol, or maybe I'm
foi o que eu falei, né? Nisso, não deixaram ele colocar
It's not going to give the
a missão.
best representation of what I'm talking about, is what I'm trying to say. It's just all I got. The Titan Transcendence Grenade suspends and jolts targets.
Eu já visto isso. A granada que suspende e deixa os inimigos negócio Taiko.
Groups of spawning in enemies when I had Transcendence active. Throw grenade, everything gets suspended. Go in for a big thunderclap, everything dies. On Legend, rinse, repeat, non-stop. This is also giving me back energy as I'm doing it. Every kind. Pick one. Name it. I'm getting it. We were trouncing the campaign. If you can figure out how Prismatic works, in which I just kind of told you how it works, I'm telling you, we need Grandmaster campaign. We were just...
Imagina a campanha GM, velho. Nossa senhora.
Fair. I will say that as a solo, the campaign will still likely be the challenge experience that you're looking for on Legend.
Bom, solo sempre vai ser o mais correto. Entre você vai aniquilar os inimigos mesmo com mais vida. Em duo também.
Just to me, anyway, trivialized the experience in a group. And I did relay this feedback to Bungie already while I was there, because part of why I like the Legend campaign is because it actually provided some pushback versus regular campaigns.
Isso faz sentido, velho. Você tá, tipo... O Datto soube otimizar a build dele, né? Soube combinar tudo certo. E tava, tipo, destruindo tudo, velho.
So, it's not as simple to use as the Titan one, or even the Warlock one. I can see how their experience might have been different after I played on a Hunter for a little bit in Patrol, as things like Trip Mine and...
A grana do caçador da Prismatic não é tão fácil de proveito. Basicamente você tem que colocar na parede, né? Colar na parede.
I believe you can stick to enemies though, so like, you know, aim precisely. In terms of the new supers, I used them for a little bit. I don't think I have a ton of gameplay recorded with them. Void Titan's Twilight Arsenal is pretty fun. Seemed like decent damage. The axes that other people get to use are pretty cool, or you can just use them all yourself and just immediately chuck them or do some kind of light chip damage. But without any sort of damage testing, that's all I can really give in terms of perspective. Same kind of feedback goes for Warlock and Hunter. I need a lot more perspective on the supers and harder content before I can give any sort of a true analysis. I didn't really go to this event to like sit there and crunch numbers about like how much does Song of Flame do when I like that wasn't,
acho que ninguém foi pra isso,
what I sought out to do. Maybe other people did that, I don't know, but it's not what I did. Let's move to Overthrow, which is the new activity in the Pale Heart of the Traveler, which is the
Esqueci sobre a atividade já de...
So first thing, Pale Heart is a completely solo destination unless you queue into specific parts of the...
Coração Pálido é... Cara, pra quem não entendeu, o Coração Pálido vai ser em instância solo sempre, a menos que você faça matchmaking no ícone do mapa. Interessante.
Now, at first, when I heard that Overthrow was a public event style activity, I was like, oh boy, I don't know if people are going to be too happy about that, thinking back to like the season 10 era. Here's how it works. You need 1,000 points to progress. Encounter completions give 450 points. Kills on enemies give a small amount. Chests give a little bit. HVTs give some points. But essentially it's going to come down to do 2 encounters to get the bulk of your points, with kills and other miscellaneous stuff kind of rounding it out. You go to stage 2, it's the same thing.
Meu Deus, são 3 estágios. 3 vezes tem que fazer isso aqui. Tipo, você tem que fazer 2 encontros por nível, ou seja, são 2, 4, 6 e mais um boss. Jesus Cristo.
That is unique to the zone that you are in. Each zone has its own set of encounters. I'm not sure if there's any dupes across different zones, because I just
único para cada zona.
Things that could happen, and these encounters have dungeon and raid adjacent mechanics in them. Hell,
encontros de raid.
One of them is just a rip from King's Fall directly, which might be good or bad depending on your
não tem problema ver. Evento público difícil, pelo menos.
They're not anything too insane, but it is more than I feel like I would experience in a typical strike or other just general content. It's on par with what you would experience in a seasonal activity, I feel like. This might actually get some people more into the raid mechanics mindset as a result, which I'm a big fan of. And there's definitely some people out there
engraçado que nos eventos públicos fica tipo tudo escuro de vez em quando.
Kind of stuff before. It's only maybe been recently that they have with the coil or something. This is where I believe you'll also be grinding for the exotic class items, so you're probably going to want to get into groups to make it go a little bit faster, as there is a lot of running around to do if you're by yourself. One thing that was causing some friction as a solo is that since activities are worth 450 points, I usually ended up with around 950 to 960 points after 2.
Aí você é obrigado a fazer mais
I never knew if I should just start a new encounter or run around like a maniac trying to get the rest of my kills done. In a group, I don't know if this is going to be a huge problem, but I also probably
475, velho. Para os inimigos, tipo, sempre dá certo dos encontros.
Sped this up. I think the only strong negative that I had was that it takes place in patrol, and therefore is incredibly easy, save for maybe the final encounter if you are solo. There's no real penalty for dying, though, so it's not a huge deal if you do. This isn't really anything outside of the norm, save for maybe the coil if you run out of the 49 reses or however many they give you now, though. I did like the 2 unique bosses that I got to do. One of them shooting constant beams of pervading
Hulk 2.0, velho.
have to dodge all around them, and then the other just being a massive arena full of enemies. I had a good time soloing these bosses. Speaking of a couple of these bosses, though, the Giga Strand and Stasis guys, they kind of hurt. The Stasis guy does this big AoE slow and freeze thing with stasis crystals, and if you're in the middle of that when that explosion goes off, you're going to get seriously hurt, if not killed outright. It happened to me a couple of times. The Strand guy's just basic staff ranged attack also hurt pretty badly. I remember a couple of times just getting whacked by it in the Legend campaign. those two enemies were the only enemies I was really scared of during the campaign missions. Even in Patrol, they were a little scary sometimes. The other enemies mostly just kind of fell over on Patrol, but that's to be expected. I'll have more feedback after we play the whole campaign, and maybe do some content that features them a bit more heavily at a higher difficulty.
É isso. Cara, me pareceu muito interessante a Prismática, como já tinha falado várias vezes durante o vídeo, né? Durante os vídeos anteriores que eu já fiz da Prismática. Cara, mal posso esperar por utilizar. Cada coisa mais bizarra. Eu tenho certeza também que durante os episódios, durante o ano, a gente vai receber mais coisa para a Prismática até um certo ponto que eles vão tentar, tipo, tirar a subclasse do jogo. E, tipo, não tirar a Prismática do jogo, mas tirar as outras subclasses do jogo e ficar só a Prismática. E vai adicionando nisso nos próximos anos. Isso aí. Acho que nos comentários que vocês acharam. E nos vemos amanhã pra live, né? Obviamente, ao meio-dia.